You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast, and this is the Opposition View with me, Will Pugh, ahead of Saturday's Premier League clash at home to Sheffield United. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Hal Stewart from the Sheff United Way. Hal, it's great having you on the podcast. It's the first time we've had you on the podcast. I always like it when we speak to new guests and new people. I feel like I have to apologise for making you come and speak to me in public less than 24 hours after you were well and truly humped at home by Newcastle 8-0. I can't start anywhere other than that, I'm afraid. How are you feeling this morning?
Well, it wasn't your fault. So,
thanks.
You probably don't need to apologise too much. You also arranged this with me before you knew that scoreline. So
true story, yeah.
I'm actually not going to attribute any blame in Will's direction.
Thanks very much, yeah. But how are you feeling about the game?
I'm feeling like I can actually take my glasses off. I've just realised because I don't have to read anything, which is quite welcome whenever I'm on YouTube. Because I do enjoy the grief I get after I do videos, but it does remove one layer of grief if you can't attribute the word specky in front of the insult. So I've just lost that and then carry on from here. Your question was about last night. Hope that sums it up.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, I quite understand. I mean, look, bottom of the table at the moment. It was a huge achievement in the first place to get promoted last season, was it not? And I think there was sort of a lot of defence of Paul Heckingbottom that I saw certainly on Twitter yesterday before he's even been sacked. He's still in a job at the moment. How does that sit with you? What's your sort of general stance? That game aside, how do you feel at the moment? What's the feeling among the fans?
We all, I can't speak for everyone, obviously. We all at the Sheff United Way, there's three of us, we back Paul. We think that Paul Heckingbottom should still be in the job because he's done a tremendous job, as you say, in getting us out of the Championship, a very, very difficult league to get out of. And he's also had to deal with a lot of off-the-field stuff at the start of this season, like losing Sander Berger and Iliman Ndiaye, which many outsiders might say were our two best players. And then you get a variety of different opinions inside the club. So he's had to contend with that. And there's been, above that, the turmoil of the club basically being for sale for the last X number of months with a number of different suitors, each one seemingly less suitable than the last. So he's done really, really well against all of that. And his win percentage is, well, it's getting worse, obviously, but it's one of the best, if not the best, for a manager who's managed as many games as he has. And I just think he's a really highly qualified, likable chap. And I do not want to see him lose his job. And we got to be careful we don't do a bit of knee jerk, because we could easily have 9 points from the way we played this season. Yet here we are talking after 1 point, bottom of the table, with now a dreadful goal difference. Yeah,
of course. What did you make then of the reports about Wilder recently, reportedly made up with Prince Abdullah?
Yeah, but where do you think that came from?
Well, yeah, Chris Wilder, I'm imagining.
That came from our interview on Sheff United Way. So all of these reports came from our interview with Prince Abdullah. So we asked. Well, actually, we didn't ask. Let me backtrack slightly. Prince Abdullah brought up Chris Wilder. We didn't ask about it, and said, "By the way, I've made up with Chris Wilder. We've patched things up, and we have a good relationship now." So we didn't chase that story because we're not really. Well, actually, we were asking questions submitted by the fans. So if anyone's watching this and they saw that interview with Prince Abdullah and you thought, "Oh, Hal didn't do a very good job," well, the questions were submitted by our Sheff United Way viewers. So if you didn't like any of the questions, that's their fault. But also, I'm joking, of course, they were great questions. But he brought that up. Now then, the Daily Mail must have seen that interview and have grasped a bit of it and run with it. And then since then, I've been getting contacted by quite a lot of publications, as you can probably imagine, because it stemmed from our interview about what we think about it. And realistically, at the time when we did it, we didn't think anything. It's just nice that two people that work together and seemingly fell out acrimoniously have patched things up. Whether you can make the leap from Prince Abdullah saying to us that he's patched things up with our former manager to the former manager will replace our current manager is very much up to you as an individual. And that's all I'll say on it.
Yeah, you think it might have been a bit of a 2 + 2 = 5 sort of a situation. Yeah, I think he was he at your game? You 2 undefeated at Tottenham, Wilder. I think there was.
Yeah, we won that game 1-0 in 90 minutes, and that's the way I prefer to look at that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah, you were winning when the whistle should have gone or would have gone last season.
And in any other season.
I quite agree, especially as it was against Tottenham. I'm more than happy to back that hypothesis. First of all, I think before we move on, how on earth does one secure an interview with Prince Abdullah? Excellent work there, by far eclipsing any achievements we've ever done on this podcast. But yeah, that must have been a sensational one for you guys.
How did we? Well, we just ask a lot of people. Like today, I've reached out to some pretty big names, and I do it in a way that is the most sort of ham-fisted and cumbersome way you could possibly imagine. I just message people on Instagram or Twitter. There is no science to it. And no. I would say of 100 people I message, 98 ignore me. And you maybe get 2 that say, yeah, okay, I'll speak to you. And amazingly, the owner of the entire football club said he would when we approached him. Yeah. So that was great. And very rare in the Premier League that I think an owner would speak to a fan channel. But he likes fan channels. He's quite forward thinking in terms of the old media. I don't put words in his mouth, but I think he has more time for the future, which is these sort of things, and maybe not so much some of the older stuff. But I don't think that way, because personally, my favorite medium on earth is broadcast radio. So I'm definitely not going to say that's how I necessarily feel, and also I don't really want to put words in his mouth. But he hasn't spoken to the local press for a while, so you can maybe draw your own conclusions. Yeah,
quite. How long did you get with him?
Well, we've interviewed him twice, so if you add them up, let's say probably an hour and 15 minutes. He says, guessing.
Yeah. No, it's amazing stuff, mate. I can't imagine. That David Sullivan would be in too much of a hurry.
Ask him.
I don't think. Yeah, well, I think there's plenty of people that have in the past. I think he's I don't think he's queuing up to certainly receive questions from fans. I think you'd struggle to wade through a lot of the insults to get to the actual questions. But look, I mean, on the whole, then, obviously I appreciate you can talk for you guys on the podcast, but you'll get a flavour for Sheff United fans a bit further afield. What's the feeling among the club at the moment? Is it, I hate this football cliche, right? I hate it. And I hate myself that I'm going to pose it as part of a question to you. And people say, we weren't quite ready to go up. I'm like, it's football. Just win the games that are in front of you and try and go up if you can. Is it one of those? Are you just like, rather have been stayed down last season because we're not quite ready for it? Or is it, well, if we'd have been backed in the summer, or Heckingbottom had been backed and spent a bit more, we might be okay, or we might still be okay anyway?
Spent about as much as I thought we'd spend. We had to go up. Like financially, we just had to. I think we've been a right mess. I know our chief executive's come out and said we wouldn't have been in a right mess, but it's easy to say that now. Who really knows? I think we'd have had to sell players. We went up and then ended up selling players anyway, but that wasn't the plan. I'm pretty confident that wasn't the plan. Losing Iliman Ndiaye and Sander Berge would not have been the drawn up on the whiteboard plan. That just happened, and we could, if we got longer, we could talk about why that happened, my theories on why that happened, but I definitely don't think that was what anyone at board level wanted to happen, but it's happened. So then you deal with the way that the cookie crumbles, and what they've done is they've gone out and tried to replace arguably the irreplaceable. Certainly Iliman Ndiaye is irreplaceable. Sander maybe. I think, let me rephrase that. Sander definitely, and Iliman definitely not. And we haven't replaced Iliman, and I don't think we ever will unless we bring Iliman Ndiaye back. And if you're watching, come home. You're always welcome. So it's been difficult. We had to go up. We did go up. We spent what I thought we'd spend. We sold who I didn't think we'd sell, certainly in one case. And we have the players we have. And Paul Heckingbottom has the players at his disposal that he has. And he has to get the best out of them. And even in that game against Newcastle, he tried. It wasn't like he just sat back with his arms folded and went, right, well, we've lost this game at half time. He changed the formation 3 times. He made every substitution that he could have made to try and change things. And it didn't work. And you can look back at it as a fan and go, well, he got this wrong, he got this wrong, he got this wrong. Sometimes you have to hold your hands up and say the players, particularly second half, let him down. And I think you could be quite reactionary after a game like that. Or you could say, right, Sheffield United under Paul Heckingbottom have not ever been hammered like this. And really, every other game this season, we've been in it, and it's either been a defeat by 1 goal or we've drawn. So I'm just going to go, right, let's see what happens next. Because if we get hammered by West Ham, and then we get hammered by Fulham, we get hammered by Man United, we get hammered by Arsenal, well, do you know what? It's going to be the same because we're losing these games by 1 goal anyway. So it wouldn't come down to goal difference at the end of the season. We'd be down anyway. So we're losing anyway. If we're getting hammered, fine. Then we can have a serious conversation. But it's 1 game, and I'm not going to go completely over the top, even though it's the worst defeat in Sheffield United's history, certainly that I can ever recall, and in my lifetime.
Yeah, I think I heard the stat yesterday. It was your worst ever home defeat. I think may have, the annals of time been hammered by a few more away from home. But yeah, obviously it's one of those sort of bad days for the club, isn't it? But Ralph Hasenhüttl survived a couple of 9-0ers, I think, at Southampton. Bournemouth, I think, got an absolute tonking last season, and then it sort of provided a bit of a rocket up the backside.
Well, the reaction is the key, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And you've just mentioned some good examples there, wasn't it? Man United, who was it in Liverpool? I feel like, or Arsenal, I can't remember. These big 6 teams, they're all the same. I feel like one of them got spanked 7-0 some time ago. Anyway, they recovered. Yeah.
Well, Man United have been on the end of a few humpings, haven't they, in recent years? Not that they've it's provided a platform for them to bounce back, but yeah, I quite agree. I mean, it's easy to say, isn't it? Yesterday that I don't think Paul Heckingbottom got too much of a hard time from reporters as I was expecting. As far as what do you think? Is this the end of you? Is your job on the line? Blah blah blah. Quite interesting to hear your sort of backing of him, really, because I think it seems, even from an outsider, most fans are going, well, he's done a spectacular job to get them there. And if the chat is bringing back Chris Wilder, who, forgive me if this is a somewhat ill-informed view, who appeared to be the man who got you into the mess that needed Heckingbottom coming in the first place, it just seems like an odd one to cast Heckingbottom out after he's done such a large body of good work just off the back of 1 defeat. Do you expect him to keep his job?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think he will. I think he should. There was plenty of blades that said, even if we go down, we'll stick with Hecky. Well, nothing has happened to change my mind on that, because I do believe the Newcastle game was a blip, and I might look back on this in 3 months and go, well, that was a stupid thing to say. We've ended up being hammered 5 times since then. But I really don't think that will happen. And also, as I mentioned, the things that he's had to deal with, I think he's dealt with them really, really well. He always speaks so well. He really maintains a level head. He's really calm. He's got a master's. I think he's got a doctorate, maybe. Anyway, he's super clever, and he's just a really, really the kind of guy you'd want in the trenches with you, because he just keeps it level all the time. He's never too high. He's never too low, and I feel like you need that in a dressing room, particularly after we've been annihilated.
Yeah, quite. Look, Hal, I was having a little look earlier on at the record between our 2 clubs, and West Ham have actually got a losing record. It does stretch back to the first. Well, of course, yeah,
quite right.
It does stretch back to the 1st of January 1924. So I'm not reading too much into that form at present. But we've beaten you 32 times, drawn 21, and lost 38. A couple of victories over you in the last 2 games we played. But looking ahead to Saturday, and I've had to ask this ever since the Tevez Gate saga, and I think that me personally and West Ham fans generally ended up weirdly having more of a dislike towards Sheffield United than it was the other way round. I feel like no, do you not think? Because a lot of fans I've spoken to before seem to have got over it quite quickly. And
well, it was a long time ago.
To me,
it was a long time ago, 2006-07. I haven't really got over it. But one of my best pals is a West Ham fan, and it's kind of changed the way that I think about that club. I don't really like saying the name because after that, I actually lost a little bit after that. and I mean that in love of football, and how much I care about it. Because I felt after that season, it kind of taught the wrong message, certainly to younger fans, that if something happens that shouldn't happen, you can actually not only get away with it, but you can prosper. And Sheffield United, we just went down, and we ended up in League One, and we were stuck there 6 years. And West Ham, even when the whole thing was going on, we're going spending a lot of money on, Faubert and players like that. And it just felt like we were scraping the barrel to try and stay afloat. And for West Ham, it was just like we'll give you 30 million because we've got loads because we stayed up, and we'll go and spend loads more. And good luck getting back. And we struggled. We really, really struggled. I don't actually think we ever really recovered until 2018. So it was like a 10-year hangover from something that should never have happened. And you can say, like, well, West Ham didn't really do anything wrong. They brought in Mascherano and Tevez, and they just signed them. And I would look at it like that and say, but the rules were at the time you couldn't do third-party ownership. And I think if we're all honest, West Ham knew that. And it was a case of you're not going to say no to, if you're offered by an agent, Javier Mascherano and Carlos Tevez, because they're two of the best players in the world. And if we had been able to bring in Javier Mascherano and Carlos Tevez, we would have wanted to bring them in as well. Yeah. And if we had, we'd have stayed up. So it's just about level playing field. And then is the punishment right? Well, I felt we played for points. We don't play for anything else. We played for points, but it was a financial punishment. And I felt it should have been a points punishment. Also, I remember in that season, Blackburn away, West Ham scoring a very dubious goal.
I was at that game. Yeah.
I mean, that. And then I remember we were at Blackburn away.
Blocked on the line. On the line.
We were at Blackburn away, and an absolute nothing of a free kick given in the last minute to Blackburn. I mean, you've never seen a worse decision in football. No one else will remember this apart from me. And Blackburn score and win it in the last minute. And I just think back to things like that. Yeah. And it felt like a very, very unfair and unsatisfactory end to a Premier League season. And after that, I just was like, right, I'm not going to let the defeats bother me as much. I'm going to still celebrate the highs like I did when I was 8, but I'm not going to let the defeats completely ruin my weekend, because if I do, I'm going to go absolutely insane after this.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's really interesting hearing that take, because I think I have spoken to Blades before who've sort of gone, it's sort of been and gone now, it's what it is, and it's in the past. And look, I've never really looked at it from that perspective, really, because I still look back now and see that as, with real rose-tinted spectacles. That was my
we would
favourite season.
If the same would happen to us. Of course you would. Every fan would. And I wouldn't expect any fan to stop supporting their team because their ownership brought in a couple of players with third-party ownership, because we'd never had it before. It was a new thing. We'd never even heard that term. It was very, very strange. Very, very strange.
Yeah,
but of course, if it's going to happen to anyone, it's going to happen to us.
Yeah, I do remember being at Bramall Lane though when you absolutely humped us 3-0 when Tevez was on the pitch, Michael Tong free kick, and thinking, we could sign another 15 Argentinian World Cup stars.
That was the worst thing that could have happened to us, because we thought we'd done it now, and we didn't kick on from that. I actually think if we'd got a draw against West Ham at home, we'd have gone, right, we've still got a lot of work to do, a lot more important games coming up. But after that, we just were like, right, we've done enough. And even on the last day, I think a lot of us went into that thinking, draw at home against Wigan. They're not a good team. And it all went...
David Unsworth as well.
Yeah, who I thought we should have kept hold of. So, really frustrating.
Yeah, it does. Listen to you say all that actually does make me feel a little bit silly and juvenile and childish, and just a bit of a wally for actually being the one to not like Sheffield United. Like when you put it like that,
I don't think we did anything.
We're the bad guys in the piece.
I don't think we did anything wrong. I don't think we did anything wrong at all in the whole thing. And people will say, you really kicked up a fuss and you marched to Parliament and all that. We were thinking about our survival as a club, because we knew if we went down with the financial problems we had at the top, we knew we were going to be in trouble. And we knew Neil Warnock, he wouldn't have gone. Neil's still in management as of a few weeks ago. He could still have been our manager all this time. Everything changed after that, and it took us years to recover, and we saw it all coming. So we had to do everything we could to try and grasp onto that Premier League status. And I felt like if we'd stayed up that season, we'd have we'd have been a sort of a Stoke under Pulis for a number of years, you know, or a Charlton under Kerbishley. We'd have been there or thereabouts, a Palace now, and that would have been huge for us, and our whole future would have been completely different.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm glad I asked, to be honest, because I was thinking,
I'm not.
Don't
just brought it all back.
I know you're.
I've had a terrible day yesterday, and now I'm having a terrible day now thinking about that.
You have to relive it all again. Yeah, I'm really sorry, but yeah, I just thought, it's been and gone now. Now, you know, it's old news.
Why don't you book me in for a root canal after this, just to like give me the hat trick?
Yeah, I might do that, mate. Look, Hal, I appreciate. I've got to let you go shortly, so let's just have a quick chat, shall we not, about the game? It's Saturday afternoon at 3:00, Sheffield United at home. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I bet
Saturday 3:00. What do you think? How's the game going to play out style wise? What can we expect? Can we expect a bounce back?
I honestly think if we'd spoken before the Newcastle game, I'd have been like, well, we'll go our basic. It's not quite this, but our basic 3-5-2. I could have predicted the 11. We'd have been fairly hard to break down. We'll have a sniff or two at goal. It'll be a fairly turgid game for the neutral, and it'll come down to set pieces. Now, I've got absolutely no idea, because Hecky may go, you were a disgrace. I am making 5-6 changes. We're changing the system. We're going 4 at the back. I've got absolutely no idea, because he has to make changes. He has to. We know Ollie McBurney will come back in. That's a given. So we'll see what he does around that, because very few of those players came out with any credit. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if there are wholesale changes. And then it'll likely be a Sheffield United 11 that has never played before together, ever. Possibly in a new style. How on earth can you predict how that will play out, how we will react? It's going to be fascinating. Whatever happens first, like if we start well, if we score first, if we get the first real chance, if we defend the first set piece really well, because we have looked awful from crosses and set pieces, conceding 9 this season. But I feel like if we do any of those things, it could swing the momentum in our favour and confidence could build, particularly if we score first. I think it could really change things. Equally, if West Ham score early, first sort of 20 minutes, that's going to be absolutely crucial. If West Ham score early, I think it could be a really long day. And I really hope I'm wrong, but I worry about how the heads are going to be after that, and how their confidence is going to be, and they might start doubting their own ability. And these are some really good players. So I would hate to see that happen. We've got to start well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've mentioned the set piece there. James Ward-Prowse has looked far better than I ever expected him to look. And yeah, he's making me look silly week in, week out, when I said I don't think he'll be a very good fit for West Ham before he signed. But he has been sensational from the set pieces. So that fills me with some confidence. But look, Hal, I appreciate we've got to let you go. You said you can't predict the team. I am going to ask you to predict the scoreline. One of the most futile features of any podcast, I think. But we do it every week regardless. Yeah.
I always get asked to do it, and I hate doing predictions. We actually have a prediction section on our own channel, and I always refuse to go on it. I just think it is totally pointless.
We never even call back to them.
No one cares.
We just
no one remembers. If you get it right, you'll bring it up, but otherwise, I'm not going to mention it again. And you know what? I did a preview of the Newcastle game, and I said, I think we'll draw 1-1. All the comments today are from fans going, you got that wrong, made yourself look. Why did I say it? Well, I don't have to. I don't have to say it at all. I've done a great preview, done loads of work, got all the other info right. I even predicted the exact Newcastle 11. No one mentions that. Just got the prediction wrong. Because how can I possibly know?
No, predict a 6-0 defeat for Sheffield United then.
Yeah,
and then
all right.
Whatever happens, yeah.
No, I genuinely think it'll be, let's be sensible, I think it'll be 4-4.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Listen, Hal Stewart there from the Sheffield United Way. Looking ahead to that game, Sheffield United at home, of course, Saturday, 3:00 after that game against Lincoln in the League Cup. Hal, you did actually get knocked out by Lincoln, did you not? Are they good? Will we beat them on Wednesday in the minute I've got before I have to let you go?
I mean, I can't believe all the things you're bringing up today. It was a dreadful game. Neither side looked any good, but there are a lot of leagues below us. They did what they needed to do. They'll probably go again in the same fashion. I wouldn't stay up late to watch that game personally, but you'll beat them just. 2-1.
Happy days, happy days. Hal Stewart there, Sheffield United Way, looking ahead to the Blades at home on Saturday, 30th of September, 3 p.m. kickoff. West Ham looking to bounce back after a couple of dodgy results in the Prem, albeit against Manchester City and Liverpool. Thank you for listening, as always, to the We Are West Ham podcast. Thank you to Hal. Follow us on all the usual places. I'm not listing them again. You know where we are on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. Go and follow us, subscribe, review, do all the things I tell you to do most weeks. I will appreciate it. So will Jonesy, and we'll see you next week.